Alright, what is poppin', people? We're here, and before I get too much into this video, I do want to say that I'm going to be out of town for a couple of days, and so kind of hard to record while I'm gone. So this is being recorded a little bit ahead of time. I think I'm still going to put it out the same day. Just getting this done now, and I'm also going to record something else that'll be put out a little bit later into my excursion. And, I've been a little slow with the uploads, but I'm still here. And I also want to make sure that I get some stuff out while I'm gone. But that's beside the point. Now let's get to the real bit about this video. We'll do another nice little spotlight. And I think both the uploads I record tonight, or however many I do, will be spotlights. Because I'm just kind of feeling these right now. And today, I wanted to spotlight Sylveon. And why is that? Well, Sylveon's a really good Pokemon. I mean, that's the brunt of it. Sylveon is one of the few fairy types that NU has. You know, when you think about fairy types in NU, it's really Sylveon and Diancie that come to mind. Yeah, Comfey is still tiered NU, but it's not very good or common. Yeah, Sylvally Fairy is viable in NU, but pretty fringe viable. And so, if you're looking for some, defensive fairy type, or even an offensive fairy type, well, Sylveon's one of your best bets. It's really strong, part of that being due to Pixelate, and its overall bulk is quite nice. Physical bulk, obviously lacking, but with investment, it's good enough to still soft check at least some stuff. And the special bulk is insane. I mean, with investment, you can take some really strong hits like Torrent boosted Surf from a double shell smashed Blastoise. Is it a favorable roll? No, but you can still tank it. So, hey, counts for something. And I think the big thing also to take with Sylveon, and this is especially applicable to these offensive sets. Also, let me just add one little more slot, because I think Sylveon has enough other things we could talk about there. The big thing with offensive sets, choice specs in particular, NU steel types aren't exactly the best at handling Sylveon. In general, the fairy resists aren't the best, because think about it, right? Sylveon's coverage, Mystical Fire, that's doing a whole bunch to Copperaja. Heatproof Bronzong, it doesn't do as much to, but a lot of Bronzong don't run a steel type move, and so yeah, it can keep switching into you, but it's not really threatening much back, I guess you could say. And plus, if you really want to, you can still run Shadow Ball, so it's not like the end of the world. And when you look at like poison types and fire types, well, one, poison types still are potential fodder to Psyshock, but they also take a lot of damage from your Hyper Voice. And in fire types, I mean, look, our defensive fire types are Arcanine and Talonflame. Do you think those mons are wanting to take H-Voice even? I'm pretty sure Talonflame is 2-hit KO'd by it, if I'm remembering right. So, you're constantly forced into spamming Roost, which isn't very good. So all in all, Sylveon's got a lot of traits that just make it really potent offensively and really good defensively. Now, I do have the offensive, not the offensive, I have the defensive set first. And this goes into what we talked about in the Vaporeon video, where Wish plus Heal Bell is just really good in current NU right now because of how effectively it lets you support other defensive staples of the tier, such as Copperaja and Bronzong. And so, generally, this is the set that you're going to see. There are a few things you could do with this set, though. I mean, again, we talked about not specially defensive Sylveon, but we talked about special defense investment, and I would say this is probably, you don't really see a lot of heavy investment in my experience. You'll see, maybe just hitting, the jump point. It's yeah, these EVs don't necessarily do anything. It's more just I want some physical bulk, I want some special bulk, and this is, the easiest way to get me to, a nice spot. It's similar to how in certain NUs with Rhydon EV spreads, you'll see people just go 16 attack EVs and in an Adamant Nature. Does that do anything? No, it just hits you a jump point, and so it gets you just a good amount of extra attack, while still letting you invest a whole bunch into bulk. And that's pretty much the same idea that we're going for here, except with our mixed defensive Sylveon. And if we're talking about other things you could do on this set, right? I've been a little bit devilish before. I've gone Calm Mind, Wish Protect Sylveon. It's not bad, but I definitely think Calm Mind sets are a little bit better done in other ways if you want them. And then I would say probably the most common other tech, though, is to just say this. Sometimes there's certain Pokemon that you need to make sure don't just deny your ability to damage them. So like Flygon, it runs Throat Chop sometimes. How would it make you feel if a Flygon Throat Chopped your Hyper Voice Sylveon and then there was therefore not checked at all by you anymore? Probably not too good. And so sometimes you can get away with Moonblast. Now, most Flygon right now are like defensive or Scarf. And so you don't really gain as much mileage as you used to when like Dragon Dance was the super popular set. And those would run Throat Chop pretty frequently. You know, now it's like, okay, defensive Flygon isn't threatening you with anything, and Scarf Flygon, well, it doesn't want a Throat Chop lock because it's not going to beat you that way. So this tech is a little bit outdated. Still works, because at the end of the day, hey, if you run into a DD Flygon, what if you want to make sure that it can't Throat Chop and it, you know, EQ spam you? And then, obviously, second set is specs. And we'd already talked a good bit about why this set is so good. But to reiterate, Pixelate Hyper Voice, strong move. Even just neutral targets like Vaporeon get to it KO'd pretty just simply with Rocks Up. Like the standard 40 special defense calm natured Vaporeon spread. I think it takes like a min of, I think it's like 50 to 59 or something. Which is insane to me that a Mon can get to it KO'd by just a neutral attack, but here we are. And with your coverage, I mean, again, Mystical Fire Psyshock is pretty much as perfect as you could like. Unfortunately, Sylveon's last slot is a little dire. Right now, I just have Heal Bell or I put Heal Bell as the first move. Because at the end of the day, right, you're not pressing your fourth move on Sylveon very frequently anyway. And so, hey, may as well have some backup Cleric support. You know, some other options that we've seen, though, again, I talked about it earlier. But Shadow Ball, okay, at least I knew I wanted that. Shadow Ball, if you really want to try to Heat-Proof Bronzong, is relevant enough. We've seen Hyper Beam a couple of times. Not because you really ever want to use the move, but say you get like a Talonflame or a Vaporeon chipped into range of this move, and you know that that is your opponent's only Mon that could even try to, you know, switch into Sylveon, for instance. Well, you could just pick them off with a Hyper Beam instead to say, good night, friend. And then, another option that we do see sometimes, the attack is so quick. The quick attack, again, not like I want to use this move very frequently, but quick attack on Sylveon does let you pick off a weakened foe, maybe a Dragon Dance Flygon you need to pick off. Maybe just, I don't know, maybe a Shell Smashed Blastoise is low enough to where your quick attack will KO him. Things like that. It's not a it's not a move you are going to be using very frequently, but then again, none of the moves you'd put here are, so you gotta with some stuff. Hell, if you really want to even, you could run Moonblast here to, again, avoid random Throat Chop shenanigans from, say, a Flygon. Not a useful move slot most of the time, but still a lot of options to put there, which I do find pretty interesting. And now, as we talk about just other options on Sylveon, there are quite a few. Obviously, one of them would be like Calm Mind. And this is for similar reasons to, say, Specs Sylveon. I'm going to do like an offensive one here because I like the idea of offensive Calm Mind Sylveon. Leave me alone. But it's the same idea here as Specs. We're going to go Timid, by the way. Let's outspeed Adamant Surf Edged. Sylveon has great coverage, and so as a sweeper, not much is stopping you if you start boosting, at least defensively. So there's that. Let's delete and then go again. There's this set. I've seen it at least once before. The fabled Snore Sylveon. Just defensive, CM. But this is a thing. Not a good thing, mind you, but a thing. It's like, you know, Crocoon in that you become really hard to take out, And even while you're resting, you still pose some threat. Obviously, Kurokun would run Sleep Talk over Snore, but you get the idea. And so, let's talk about Counterplay, though, now, because Sylveon's really good. I think what's still going to come to your mind are Steel types, right? Even with Spec Sylveon being as good as it is, fortunately for the tier, most Sylveon are still defensive. And so, answering it's usually not that big a deal. And so, Steel types will probably be what you turn to, because they resist Fairy and immediately just threaten Sylveon with heavy damage, especially in the case of Copper Raja, which always runs Heavy Slam, or, I mean, maybe Sheer Force Iron Head if you're really feeling it. Again, we mentioned earlier, Bronzong does not run Heavy Slam very frequently. If you need to, though, like if this is your only Mon that can do anything about Spec Sylveon, then you best be Heat Proof with Heavy Slam. At the worst case scenario, though, if it's an offensive Sylveon and you're Heat Proof, you're still gonna check it fine. Is just, you know, you switch it and you like throw off a Toxic, or you maybe start Iron Defense boosting to make your body press do more. Something like that. And the next little category we got is some nice little fire types. And again, Arcanine, it's another Mon that's going to come in on a Hyper Voice. Fortunately, it avoids the 2-hit KO if I'm remembering correctly. I don't want to calc it right now. But you take H-Voice well enough, and you throw off a Toxic in retaliation, and then hopefully you stall out some terms of Morning Sun. Salazzle is a really good answer insofar as it being able to take advantage of Sylveon locking into Hyper Voice, if it specs. We set up a free Nasty Plot. And of course, if it's defensive Sylveon, Salazzle just always switches into you. And then it gets a Nasty Plot for free. And it can even disrupt you with Encore stuff if it, you know, really wanted to. Like, I don't know, say you were Calm Mind Sylveon, right? And then Lazzle just Encores you into CM and then keeps plotting up. Not a fun time. And it's Talonflame. There's a last sort of little fire type guys here. Definitely one of the most unfortunate options you could have as a check, because you take so much from Hyper Voice, even when invested in your HP stat. But I mean, if you need to soft check it, you definitely are a soft check. You resist H-Voice well enough to take one and then, like on the switch, and then maybe, you know, Brave Bird to pick it off. Or if it's just a 1v1, you know, you could status Sylveon and then beat it from there, maybe. I think you need prior chip, though, if you really want to try to 1v1 Sylveon with Team Play, but it's still an answer. And then last lot, Poison types. They don't like its Sylveon's coverage whatsoever. Not at all. But you can still switch into your choices and threaten heavy damage back. If you're Garbodor, even, you're really happy about that interaction because it gives you a free chance to spike as the Sylveon retreats. And as mentioned with all the other ones, hey, if it's defensive Sylveon, it ain't doing anything to you anyway, so very safe. That's going to be it for Sylveon, though. There's a lot that this Mon has going for it that's good. An awful lot. And it's probably not too hard to see why we have it ranked so highly right now. The Mon is very... When you have mods that could go just straight up defensive versus offensive, they're really, like, just effective because there adds that level of complication to how you play against them. You know, you have to guess, okay, what set am I up against? It's like Flygon, right? Am I against a defensive Flygon or is it an offensive Flygon? Especially when you have other Pokemon in the tier that enable that switch between sets so easily. Like, Sylveon plus Vaporeon is a legitimate core because Vaporeon means that Sylveon can just run specs. You know, Vaporeon's got the Wish Duty locked up there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know, if you did, I get subscribe, please. Anyhow, I hope you guys are enjoying your day. And I'll see you guys whenever I'm back. Peace.